in your role as editor of Legal 500 Latin America. What should law firms be looking to do when submitting to the Legal 500? What boxes do they need to tick when providing you with information on the work they've been doing? And how can the marketing teams that we've been discussing, how those firms help with that process?
At the risk of going right back to sort of ABC, it's it's really a case of filling the submission form in terms of what it's actually asking. So, for example, if we receive a work highlight, I don't need 50% of the information in the work highlight to tell me how important the client is. If it's, you know, an A plus or B plus company or firm, the chances are that we will know it already. If it's not, well, Google exists for a reason, and we will do our own, you know, checking on who that client is. What we need to know fundamentally is what the law firm, what the partners, what the team on that mandate have done for that client. And probably 50% of the time, we don't receive that information. So that would be one simple point. If you're going to name associates as associates to watch as upcoming figures that are of relevance, they should be appearing in the work highlights that are listed in the submission. Otherwise, it appears just like a name that somebody in the firm has chose to put forward, but without the corollary and evidence of the work that they've participated in during the previous 12 months.
And that's really a question of credibility, right? If you're pitching a lawyer as a leading lawyer or as a rising star, then you need to be able to demonstrate why that pitch is being made.
We, certainly at Legal 500, we're an annual guide. We don't take, reputation is reputation. What we need to know is evidence of recent activity. So we need to know not only what are you doing on a given mandate, for whom, and in detail, but who's doing the work, certainly down to senior associate level. Then again, if you supply us with a submission and you've included 8 partners because you have 8 partners in the team and they've all put their hands up and say, I want to be on here, but there are no senior associates, there's a shortfall there. We have no doubt that, all of these partners are capable. We can check their bios, we can check their trainings, we can check if they have in-house experience, etc., all of which are facets of their careers that we regard as important. But if there's no second layer, there's a question mark for us. And again, if there are no senior associate levels or counsel levels mentioned in the deals, we're left with a question mark. Even more ridiculous and basic, fill in all the boxes in the submission form. When did this transaction start? When did it end? Who did you see on the other side? If there was nobody on the other side, that's fine. But we will get to all this information eventually, sooner or later, but we'd rather it came from you. In the same way that if the partner's lost, if a law firm has lost a partner, we would far rather you told us and we can have that established, we don't write editorial about them, there's no misgivings, etc., than find out by a second or third hand a month later. All law firms are absolutely, they knock on our door every day metaphorically with emails and press releases, etc., saying we've hired this person. But I think there needs to be more frankness and openness about departures as well.
Yeah.
It's not an unusual state of affairs. Losing even a leading partner does not mean an instant demotion. What we want is a relationship of honesty and trust in the sort of, the delivery of that documentation. So I think what we'd sort of ask for is that, we're treated in a professional and courteous manner with all the information, and that the firms can rely on us not to make knee-jerk reactions at the departure or at a loss, etc. Because we won't. We've been in the business too long. We understand how it operates. We understand that there will be poaching of individuals, losses of teams, movements. This is the natural nature of partnership-style organisations and institutions. Law firms have accepted that as part of their, an ongoing part of their survival and existence. There's no need to hide it from those that are trying to give an accurate portrayal of your capabilities.
I'd like to pick up on something you mentioned there about referencing or listing in each work, highlighting each matter, the other law firms that either you worked with as co-counsel or you met on the other side of the table. And I think a lot of the law firms that I've spoken to over the years, a lot of which are clients of Aitken Legal Marketing, whom we help with their submissions, they feel that by putting those other law firms' names into the work highlights, they're sort of doing marketing on behalf of those firms, and they don't want to market their competitors. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but we generally advise our law firm clients to always include the names of those firms, because it helps you benchmark. It helps Legal 500 say, well, if these firms are on the other side of the table, we have an idea of who you're competing with, who you're meeting, on the other side of an M&A deal or across the table in a litigation case, for example.
I would strongly endorse, the recommendation that you're giving your clients. It's not a case of marketing others. As you say, it acts as a sort of a natural benchmarking process, because the best deals will generally have the best firms in some sort of participation. Obviously, in certain deals, especially if they're incredibly sizable and certain firms are conflicted out, you will see other players engaged. Now, those younger or smaller or less high-profile players will undoubtedly have that in their submission. We will know they are participating. So there is no loss to firms that consider themselves leaders at identifying what could be argued is a smaller or less significant firm in a transaction in which they've been involved. That's, again, it's the nature of the market. I guess what I would like to see is sort of an understanding and recognition that we won't just take the most simple reading of a given fact that is presented to us. Also, by increasing, as you say, by naming the firms, you increasingly see the pools of who interact with each other, and it is a sort of second level benchmarking that is a very useful tool, because that is the market speaking. Clients have chosen those firms and are happy to choose those firms to work on that transaction. Are we supposed to gainsay the client's decision? I don't think so. So yes, I would ask, and we would be delighted to see those slightly lost boxes at the bottom of each work highlight where it says dates and counterparty filled in on a regular basis. Yeah. Because the richer the field of information we have to work with, the better we can portray individually the difference between all these different firms. It's become a platitude. Sorry, just to conclude. Certainly, I've said it before. The reality is, not all clients are suitable for all law firms, and not all law firms are suitable for all clients. So the more information we have, the better we can detail and describe and give a sort of portrait of who they are, how they operate in our editorials, so that a potential client can really decide not between shades of grey, but between differences who have different styles of operation, different styles of presentation, etc., between those differing firms.
Now we've got into the nitty-gritty of the submission process, your ranking methodology at Legal 500. There's quite an important question I'd like to ask you about client-referee feedback. It's a question that arises great frequency when discussing the process, the research process, the ranking process with our clients and with law firms that are not our clients. And that is based around the fact that at Chambers and Partners, which I think everyone considers is the main competitor to Legal 500, these are the two leading legal directories, legal publishers in the market. At Chambers, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get ranked as a firm or as an individual lawyer, or to improve your ranking as a firm or as an individual lawyer without a critical volume of client-referee responses. Is that the case at Legal 500?
There is absolutely no doubt of the importance of positive, independent client feedback for the Legal 500. As I mentioned right at the beginning of our conversation, it was John Pritchard, the owner of Legal 500, who originated the notion of having a submission, an interview with the partner or the team, and requesting that client feedback. So we've always had it absolutely as one of the central aspects of our ranking analysis and process. First and foremost, we want to see that the team and the workflow is there. So that comes first. What that is then guaranteed by are the client comments. Now, here I will, add a caveat. You and I both are long enough in the tooth and have had, the experience in this world to know that, the client process can be gamed, that firms sometimes organize and establish how these responses are going to be given. So we are very critically careful with the client feedback we receive. There is a difference between receiving a professional peer recommendation from an international New York law firm and the local solicitor's practice on the corner down in Frome. The difference matters. There's a difference in having a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs and having, again, a startup financial institution that has yet to build its reputation. Whether one likes it or not, they have a different weight. And so, yes, critical client commentary is absolutely integral and central to our process, especially and increasingly so for individual listings in our guide. But first of all, we want to see the composition and capability of the team and the proven track record of activity during the last 12 months. And then we look at the client feedback that's received, having analysed who is the respondent, what is their role, what is the cap of this company or the importance of the company that's sending in this information. Have they been, how long have they been a client of the firm, etc., etc. So to sum up, client commentary is an integral, essential part of our process, but we look at it and we take it on board critically.
Thanks for that really clear and comprehensive answer, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people very interested to listen to that and really analyse what it means for their own processes and their submissions. You touched on the question there of peer feedback or feedback from other law firms. Often the law firms you and your team primarily will interview will be competitors of the law firms that you are looking to rank or looking to analyse within your research process. How do you cope with the fact that inevitably some of those law firms will provide commentary that is only designed to undermine the market position of their competitors?
There are distortions in when one uses something as open as client feedback. We're both aware of that, especially some of these markets. You have to have a very deep grasp of the market to know who is married to who, or who went to law school with who, or who did a master's together. One of the sort of limits or boundaries that we have is that obviously during interview processes we hear half comments and observations about peers, etc. We work in the following way. First of all, we wait for spontaneous positive comments. Who is getting mentioned as opposed to who is being dissed, so to speak, or criticised. We won't take critical comments on board unless we hear them from multiple independent sources, at which point, that is not to say that we then suddenly move the subject of those critical comments down. No, but what it does flag up to us is that there's something we need to look at there. There's something we need to go and investigate further and get to the bottom of. We've heard gossip or talk about this issue. Is anybody else have this on their radar? And in due course, go back to the firm and say, well, we've heard these observations from the market about your practice currently. What are your thoughts? What are your responses? As for peer officially sought commentary from peers in terms of as when they're named as a client, we ensure that any firms, for example, let's say I'm working in Peru, if a Peruvian firm wants to add a law firm that has referred it work, etc., they have to be external to the Peruvian market.
Okay.
It's not foolproof, but there is not a fundamentally foolproof, ultimately foolproof method of blocking favoritisms and distortions. You know, we talked about ESG earlier and diversity issues. I could, you know, pull out the rabbit of unconscious bias. We all have it. We prefer a style of doing something, a mode of operation. Everybody has slight inclinations in one way or another, but we have to try and separate that wheat from the chaff of comments that are genuinely not justified and that are given to throw us off the scent. Again, unfortunately, you know, people do lie to us, both in written form and otherwise. But that's one of the, you know, the issues that one has to take part when one is trying to envisage the market as a whole. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, remember that all the individuals that one is speaking about who constitute a team, who constitute a firm, are individuals trying to build themselves a life, trying to build their profession, quite possibly with a family to support, etc. It's not for us to criticize their careers. That's not what we are about. And that's why we insist on this primary focus on team and the firm, rather than absolutely going down the line of ranking individuals.